Hey guys, so I'm gonna come out with making a video that I think is, first of all, gonna be super controversial. This is a very wild theory, and I just want you guys to be ready. Get on your seats, be ready to listen to this because it's gonna be wild, and the probability of this happening could be very low. But I do think it's a very entertaining idea. Um, so, you know, jump on the train here with me, and let me see if I can try and convince you. So, I believe when you're talking about Straw Hats, right, and Marineford and Wano and what it's shaping up to be, I want to take a dive in thinking about the possibilities of what could happen about a Straw Hat dying. Now, I did say this was going to be very controversial, and of course, a lot of people are of the opinion that the Straw Hats are not going to die, right? So, every single Straw Hat is going to be able to accomplish their dream. And in many ways, I actually do believe that, but I want to examine like if is Oda can be able to go to that length of actually not seeing a Straw Hat member, a member of the main crew, actually achieving their dreams, right? So this whole thing came to me, and I've thought about it, and I'm gonna give my arguments for it. So they're gonna probably be jumbled up, but this is I hope I'm gonna make sense in the end there, right? So all this begins with the huge talk of death that we've been getting in, about Wano, and everybody's been speculating that something or someone important is gonna die. Now, of course, a lot of people were thinking that it's gonna be, either member of the Scabbards, the Minks, Law, Jinbei, and all the rest. So I think the first part of this video, we're just gonna find like really good reasons as to why we think some of these other characters, or at least in my opinion, that it's not gonna be them. And yeah, we're gonna start doing an elimination method. So just beginning with the Straw Hat Pirates, we have to examine their dreams. We have to examine what every single ambition of theirs and what it has to do, and if there's a connection there between all of them, right? So Luffy's dream is about becoming the Pirate King, and he wants to get the One Piece, right? So, if you guys remember in the chapter when Luffy and Luffy says when Kaido announces that they're going to claim the One Piece, Luffy says, "Hey, that's going to be mine," right? So, Luffy wants both the One Piece, of course, and he also wants to be Pirate King, and the One Piece obviously has something to do with Laugh Tale. And so we start creating a thread that connects all the Strat's dreams to Laughdale, and we can kind of see we can kind of get a really good candidate for who potentially, if Oda is going to go that direction, could die, right? So I'm going to read for you guys an article, a comment by Oda in the Jump Faster in 2020, and I'm gonna read it verbatim. So this happened during Odin's flashback. So here we go. While I'm showing all these flashbacks, Luffy's party's adventures are having their stakes risen as well. They'll soon be faced with the reality that you have to bring sacrifices to fight for the things you believe in. Well, of course, Luffy's not the sort of person to think about those sorts of things though. The Wano Kuni arc is finally moving towards its climax as well. I've been looking forward to drawing Wano Kuni a lot, so I'm psyched. And once it's over, things are going to be grim. Sabo will, Vivi will, and Hancock will. So Oda here is teasing us that something bad potentially could happen to Sabo or Vivi and or Hancock, and has been the subject of many debate, especially when you think about that huge chapter that came out 956, right? Big news. And I think what Oda has been doing is it's all been a red herring all this time, like with Sabo. I mean, everybody knows Sabo cannot be dead. Sabo is the new ace. Sorry, he has his devil fruit and he has his will too. And I think this is classic subversion by Oda. Oda wants to completely, have the twist so huge that nobody could ever see. And he's just giving us misdirection. This is classic misdirection by Oda. So let's talk about why Straw dying, potentially in Wano or the Wano arc or saga, right? Could be a really big deal. And we kind of have to go back all the way to Marineford to get the answers of who will be or who is going to be a likely candidate. So, as I was saying before, all the Straw Hats' dreams are somehow connected to Laughdale. Now, Luffy, of course, is going to be the Pirate King. He has to get to Laughdale. He has to find the One Piece. Zoro wants to become the world's strongest swordsman, and we know Zoro actually has to fight Mihawk in the end, or at least if you believe that idea. Nami's dream is being a cartographer and drawing all the maps of the world. So she has to get to Laughdale because it is the last remaining island that nobody's ever been there. And then Usopp, I'm going to talk about Usopp in the end, right? I'm going to tell you who I think is going to be that candidate in the end. So let's talk about Brook. Brook's dream is reuniting with Laboon. And for that to happen, they have to circumnavigate the planet and get all the way back to the first part of the paradise, right? So Brook's dream also has something to do with Laughdale and then being able to, Luffy becoming Pirate King. And then Frankie's dream is that his ship, the Sunigo, is the best ship and is able to sail to the ends of the world. So that also has to do with Laughdale. Now, Sanji's dream is finding the Old Blue. Now, this is a very popular theory, but a lot of people think that the All Blue is a place in the Grand Line where all the seas connect, right? And it has something to do with the destruction of the Red Line, where all the seas are going to connect. So, like, Sanji can have, all species of fish available to him because he's a cook and he likes cooking. Now, the most popular theory about who potentially could die in the Straw Hats if Oda were to go to direction is Usopp. Usopp, and the strong argument for this normally is that Usopp's dream is basically becoming a brave warrior of the sea. And he did say, I think in Little God, and I'm not so sure, but he did say that his dream would be to die when he was laughing, or something. Now, the thing about Usopp that I want us guys to really think about is, you know how Oda likes to do all this like gag things with Usopp? First of all, Usopp is God Usopp, right? I mean, I know that's a meme in a way, but like, I think Oda does this thing a lot where he takes like a joke thing and he gets very serious with them. Now, remember Usopp saying that he's gonna lead like 8,000 soldiers in the end there? And you know how Usopp has all these ties to Elbaf. Like he said, he wanted to go to Elbaf and all that stuff. So I think the setup for Usopp and how potentially still connected to Laughdale is this. When the Straw Hats, when Luffy becomes Pirate King and gets the One Piece, he's gonna go to war with the world government, right? And there is a really huge, strong army that has been accounted for so far in the story, and that's the Elbaf Giant Army, right? So the giants, right? And we already saw this with Hyruddin. Hyruddin was actually the first giant who actually raised up Usopp in Dressrosa and calling him God Usopp. So, like, imagine, we know about how Big Mom basically has been looking to marry off Lola so that she could get control of the army of the giants because they're known as the strongest army in the world right now. The world government isn't controlling them. They are completely an independent crew by themselves. So in the end, I think the final war, we're probably going to see Usopp rallying with the giants of Elbaf, like being their commander. So for this reason, I still don't think, I don't see Usopp dying. And this leads me to the person who I think Oda has been cleverly setting up. He has been buttering us up ever since post time skip began, and ever since basically NES Lobby. And I think it's Robin. Now, that might sound as like a huge shocker to you, and I personally find it hard to believe it as well. But I am going to try and convince why I think Robin is going to die, or Oda has been setting up very carefully about potentially an ominous thing happening, or there's been a foreboding of bad things happening to Oda, to Robin, sorry. So, let's begin. We're going to begin talking about Luffy. And we're going to go all the way back to Marineford, right? So in Marineford, and the events actually preceding Marineford, I want to say this is something very important, right? All the way back in Djibouti, the last Straw Hat member to actually disappear when Kuma came in with his devil fruit is Robin, and we get that beautiful panel of Robin stretching her arms out to Luffy, and it's that moment Luffy just loses it because all his crew just disappeared right in front of his eyes, right? And when we go all the way to Marineford now, all this is gonna make sense, hopefully. Now, when you go all the way back to Marineford and the impact of Ace and Ace dying, Ace was Luffy's brother, and I really want to talk about the huge similarities. I think a lot of people overlook this, but Luffy, sorry, but Robin and Ace have a lot of similarities between them, right? So both of them, when they were growing up, they're basically referred to as demon childs. Like nobody really wanted them. Their existence basically in the world was forbidden and they were hated upon. You know, Robin was hated upon by everyone because the world government made her to be a criminal, as well as all the O'Harans. Her home country was destroyed, and then Ace was a son of he had the blood, being the son of the Pirate King, and how that like had a really huge impact on him because everybody wanted him to die. Seemingly, he felt like his life was useless, and they share a very similar moment. Like if you go all the way back to Marineford, when Ace is is on the scaffold and he's just contemplating and reflecting about all the events in his life. And all we go and we now with Robin at Enies Lobby, and I want to talk about Enies Lobby because for what Oda has been setting up for Robin and Wano Kuni, I think we're gonna get some a lot of throwback things at Enies Lobby. We all know that great moment, you know. And if you ask a lot of people, like, what are one of the best One Piece moments, for sure, like the "I want to live" moment when all the Straw Hats, when Luffy tells Robin, Robin, I need you to say it. And then Robin, is just crying over there, thinking about all this time how her dream, and remember how in when she was telling Cobra all the way back in Alabaster about how one dream has always been finding about the true history, but there've been so many enemies in front of her that she hasn't had the ability to be able to achieve her dream. And so it's in that moment that she realizes that these people are there for her, and I want to talk about Robin's dream, right? So we know Robin wants to find information about the Void Century and the real Poneglyph and finding out the true history of the world. But there's, I think, another major thing which collectively adds up to the I want to live moment, and that goes all the way back to Robin and Jaguar Soul, right? So Jaguar Soul tells Robin just before he's about to die that she shouldn't lose hope, right? She shouldn't be put down. That she's got to go out to sea, and then she's gonna find her friends who are never gonna leave her. Now, I think that part of Luffy of Robin's dream is actually bigger in many senses, as opposed to even her finding out about Rio Poneglyph. Now, of course, that's for argument, but I guess maybe we can say both of them have the same pedigree of importance to Robin. Now, so Robin having that huge moment with the Straw Hats actually coming to save her and challenging the entire world is such a huge deal. I can't understand how that's a really important deal. And now that's gonna tie back to what Oda has been setting up for Robin all the way back in, all the way right now from Zoe to Punk Hazard, and now currently, as of I'm speaking of this as of chapter 991 at Onigashima. Now, we know that also Robin. Now, what else I'm going to talk about is I want to remove other candidates that other people have been thinking about. And the biggest candidate people have been thinking about who's going to die potentially is Law, the Scabbards, Kinemon, and the Minx, and Jinbei, right? So let's talk about the reasons why I don't think those three are going to give the same level of impact. Now, we have to think about, again, we're going to go back all the way back to Marineford and the death of Ace. Now, in Marineford, it is the one time that we've actually seen Luffy's will completely shattered. Like, when Ace died in front of his arms, after all the struggle that Luffy had gone through to see his brother live, Luffy completely breaks down. Absolutely, he completely breaks down. And we saw that after the events of the Marineford, him with Jinbei at Amazon Lily, and Jinbei is is trying to calm him down and just talk to him and remind him that he still has his friends. So at that moment, Luffy even questions his ability of becoming the Pirate King. And this is a huge deal because I think we're going to see a similar scenario play out. And going with Oda's article from what he said about Jump Faster, I think this could potentially be it. So when you think about who else could really threaten Luffy's dream of becoming the Pirate King, in my opinion, Law, Kinemon, the Scabbards, they don't get the same pedigree as or impactful, emotionally, challenging and emotionally, I want to say, impact that a Straw Hat member dying potentially would. And I'm using potentially here because, again, this is a very, very wild theory. So, let's talk about Law. Now, a lot of people have been thinking that Law's story has ended and it culminated with the death with the capture of Doflamingo. But I actually don't think that. I actually think the opposite. I think there's still a lot left about Law that we actually don't know. Because we have to remember that we can say that Law's story ends with Doflamingo because all the way back in Punk Hazard, Law is able to convince Luffy to get into an alliance to take out Kaido, and he says that they have a 30% chance of doing that. So Law has always had Kaido's eyes for the longest time, and it never ended with Doflamingo. If anything, the plan still continued. And this is something else that I also want to talk about Law that I think people have completely forgotten about Law. Law is the last member of Flavins because you guys remember what happened in Flavins with the whole lead ash disease, and basically everyone died, and the world government knew about what the impact of the lead that was being mined in Flavins. And what even makes the situation sad is the world government literally committed a genocide because after finding out about the harmful effects, they came out, gave propaganda information about the how the disease is transmitted, and basically caged in every single person in Flavins to die, except Law. So Law is the last remaining member of Flavins, and he's the only person who actually knows what happens. Now, I don't think Law dies, but and even if he does, I'm not saying the possibility of him not dying is not there, but Law has to give out that information, and that information has to get to the world. The world in general, the world at large so far, they still think that the world government is good. Like they don't think the world government is a bad thing. Now, as the series is coming to a climax, that narrative has to change. The people have to realize and come under one banner and realize that the world government has been authoritarian dictators and they've been getting away with the most heinous of crimes, and the genocide of Flavins being one of them. So I do not see Law dying up until he's able to reveal this information. Now, let's talk about Kinemon. Kinemon is very interesting. And Kinemon, I believe, Oda has been doing the biggest red herring and just teasing us every single time with the thought of Kinemon dying. Now, I personally don't think Kinemon is going to die, and here are my reasons for why I don't think he's going to die. First of all, I think out of everyone else, Kinemon being the leader of the Scabbards, I think he's the number one person who deserves to actually witness Wano being opened and actually witness Odin's long dream of having Wano be open a reality, right? And on top of that, there's a crucial plot point with Kinemon that Oda sort of just like left there, but I think knowing Oda and his style, I think he's not gonna have Kinemon die, despite the number of death flags he said. He said on numerous occasions how he's gonna die in this battle. And something else that is very interesting that I'm actually going to connect with Jinbei as well, because that's another candidate people have actually been thinking that, they're going to die. And just like Kinemon, there's so many death flags on Jinbei and how Jinbei was willing to risk his life. When you go all the way back to Marineford, he always said that he's going to risk his life to have Luffy die, but that hasn't happened yet. And I think what Oda has been deliberately doing with these two characters is having them mention all this so that he could pull the dagger. Now, Jinbei and Kinemon has not met Otsuru, right? In the 20 years time, ever since Kinemon and the Scabbards got sent back to the future, he hasn't met Otsuru. And he says that he's not going to want to see her until after the final battle. Now, Oda loves these small moments of like these small reunion moments where he has like people who haven't seen each other, especially if they're family members. And I have a really, really good thing. Like when we think about Pound, Pound is the perfect reason for why I don't think Kinemon is gonna die. I mean, Oda saved Pound from a potential death through through when we all thought that we all wanted the idea that Pound was killed by Oven, but it turns out, he survived and he actually met up with Chiffon and Lola. Now, Oda loves these small moments, and I believe that he's still gonna save Kinemon reuniting with Otsuru in the end there. I still believe that's a thing that's gonna happen. Now, with Jinbei, just like with Kinemon, too many red flags to the point where it's not gonna be a surprise. Like, it's not gonna be typical fashion Oda. And something else that I want to talk about Jinbei. Now, a lot of people have been thinking that Jinbei was gonna die, and I was actually of the same opinion too, with especially what's gonna happen with what happened at Whole Cake Island. But then again, in 976, we saw Jinbei introduced officially as a Straw Hat, and Jinbei more so has a very important role as the crew's helmsman, right? So for these two reasons, I don't think Jinbei. I think the moment we saw Jinbei being introduced and having an official role, and his role is very crucial because we have to think about his skills as a helmsman. We go all the way back to Whole Cake Island, and he was able to do the whole green room, and completely evade Big Mom's soul candy that was about to just engulf the entire Sunny. So Jinbei has a very important role, and I wanna talk about the presence of Jinbei because I think it's very, dude. Like Oda has made this, in my opinion, with what we saw in chapter 590, and I think in the anime episode 505, when Jinbei was there to confront Luffy and tell him that he has more important things to do. And I think Jinbei's presence here, potential with Robin dying, he's going to be that mature crew member who's always going to be there to remind Luffy. I feel like that's what Oda has been setting up Jinbei to be a strong, to be the person who's going to be provide that strength and courage for Luffy potentially when if and when Robin dies or something bad happens to her. So for this reason, I don't think Jinbei is gonna die. And now I want to remind you guys about Kaido, right? Now, Kaido has been a character that is known for doing one thing. He loves to break people's will. Kaido's MO is finding strong people. He cares about strength. That's what he wants in his crewmates. And he destroys, and we see this in the Tobiropo. He beats people in submission, makes you subservient to him, and that's how he breaks your will. Now, in the first act of Wano, we had Luffy versus Kaido in chapter 923, and Luffy was one-shotted, obviously, by Kaido. We all know this, and we saw that happen. But the really important thing was Luffy's will was not broken, right? Luffy's will was not broken because even after being one-shotted and being unconscious, Luffy's Conqueror's Haki still reigns supreme and he's still able to knock out the beast pirates who are surrounding him. And Kaido even stops and says, oh, he also has Conquerors. And that's where we also get information that Kid also has Conqueror's Haki. Now, the beast pirates are also well known for being, for loving torture. Queen loves to torture people. Same as King. And we know King is a pervert as well. Now, what is it crazy to imagine that one of the Straw Hats is going to be tortured to give out information? And I want to remind you guys about the moment we got in Ibisu Town. The conversation between Usopp and Nami, I think, is a very important, very, very important conversation because they talk about how, because they're sort of like the weakling trio, they talk about how fast they're willing to, spill information if if they're under the threat of torture. And I think Otis deliberately put that there because he has been setting up a thing, something that's going to be happening akin to this scenario. And we've also been getting a lot of Law. We've always had this thing with, remember how Law and Shinobu had like that big disagreement because Shinobu essentially doubted Law's intentions, and Law actually reminded and told her, "You're gonna doubt you're gonna pay for this for actually doubting me." And he reinforces the idea that if there's not gonna be trust between pirate alliances, it might as well be null and void. Now, we're gonna talk about a huge theme that has been playing out in Wano slowly and slowly, and this is just amazing to me because if what I'm thinking is true, then I think Oda has been setting up this brilliantly. Now, for this, we're going to talk about betrayal and how pirate alliances always end in betrayal. Now, the first time that we were actually introduced to this particular line is in Punk Hazard, just right around the time when Law and Luffy are about to form the alliance. And surprisingly, or coincidentally, I want to say, it is actually Robin who warns Luffy and tells him, Luffy, in most scenarios, pirate alliances end in betrayal, and since you're a trusting person, it could end up biting you. Now, I think that's very important because we see, we start seeing, Robin being linked to all these things happening. Now, we've had the same thing get reiterated by Apu. Apu, in chapter 980, when he was fighting Kid, he tells Kid the same thing. He says, you were dumb to think that any pirate alliance is not going to end in a betrayal, and something bad always happens. We had Kaido in 987 when he gets ambushed by the scabbards. He says the same thing. He says, when pirates starts losing, they're probably going to betray you. And this has been a really huge plot point that I think is gonna play off, is gonna pay off. Now, many people think that this idea is only gonna apply to Big Mom and Kaido, but I actually think Oda has been setting this up that it's actually also gonna affect or gonna have an impact on Luffy with his alliance as well. And we're seeing that Luffy's gonna have so many alliances at Onigashima already. He already has an alliance with Kid, Law, Hawkins, and by the time Drake is also going to join them as far as 990 is concerned. Now, I think that's going to pay off. First of all, that's going to be brought back up. And one thing I also want to talk about is the moment in Zou. I think the moment in Zou when the Straw Hats and the two Mink leaders, Nekomamushi and Inuarashi, they take the Straw Hats to the whale tree. Something very crucial actually happens that I think is very underlooked, and that's Nekomamushi actually showing concern for the safety of Robin, right? So Nekomamushi comes is very anxious and worried and tells Robin that, you know, because you're the only person in the world that is able to read the poneglyphs, when the time comes for all the big names having their poneglyphs and wanting to read them is gonna come, she's gonna be a huge target. And in that in that moment, and especially in the anime, we get something very similar, extremely similar to what we saw in Enia's lobby, right? With entire Straw Hats lined up, ready to defend Robin, ready to fight for her. And then Robin says she thinks about it for a moment, and then she typically does kind of like what Robin does, like that small giggle, and then she says it's okay because I have really strong crewmates to protect me, and everyone is like, they do the same kind of like Chopper impression where they're super impressed, like because Robin is showing so much trust in them and belief in them as her, crew members. But that's really important, guys. That's really important because, again, I think it's another small teaser that Oda has been showing to us. And remaining on the subject of Zoe, in the same arc in the end there, when we had Capone Gang Beijing take Sanji away, we had Zoro giving us a very huge warning, right? Zoro tells the crew that this is not the right time. Now, a lot of people, I think, misconstrue Zoro's intentions when he said like they shouldn't go after Sanji. But I think Zoro basically what Zoro really wanted was they needed to have their focus on Kaido first of all, and then once they were done with Kaido, he knew that Sanji was still going to remain alive and that they were going to go and save Sanji later on, so that they could not bring Big Mom into the situation because that would essentially be the worst case scenario.
Now, the worst case scenario actually played out, right? And we have to remember Zoro is, if you go back all the way to Water 7, Zoro is always the person who tells Luffy or reminds him of really important things. And in those both scenarios, we saw Luffy being Luffy, Luffy kind of being a dumbass. It's like, nah, he's not gonna really think too much about this. He's gonna go and ask Sanji, and then we're gonna go all the way back to what Oda said in Jump Festa. Luffy doesn't think about all these kind of things. But now the culmination of Wano, due to the Straw Hat's actions, right? Luffy went after Sanji in Whole Cake Island, and that forced Big Mom, with all the things that they did, it forced Big Mom to come to Wano. And that ended up with the worst case scenario that Zoro actually warned the Straw Hats could happen. They involved themselves with two Yonko at the same time. Now, I am of the opinion that Oda has been setting this up to be a crucial punishment. Like the Straw Hats are gonna get what's gonna be coming for them because of the decisions that they made, and especially going after Sanji. Because now Big Mom is back, the resurrection of the Rocks Pirates is well due, and Kaido and Big Mom now actually want to go after the One Piece, and they're directly threatening the dream of their pirate of Luffy becoming a pirate king. So that's really super important. Now, I want to talk about something. This is really huge information, guys. This is really information, in my opinion, because we had at Onigashima, I think in chapter 989 or 8, I'm not so sure. I can't remember very well. We had Frankie. Frankie coming up and telling Big Mom, hey, Big Mom, you guys don't forget, he tells Nami, you shouldn't forget that Luffy is actually going to become the Pirate King, and Big Mom is just a mere Yonko. Now, I want to point with this out, this being a really, really important thing, because so far, Robin has been the only Straw Hat that hasn't said something along those lines, or something akin to that. We had Nami saying the same thing in Whole Cake Island versus Cracker. And he said Luffy is gonna be the man who has the Pirate King, so he has I think I don't remember the phrasing very well, but Luffy Nami in Cracker versus Luffy. Zoro, we had Zoro with that brilliant nothing happened moment versus Kuma all the way back in Thriller Park. Says the same thing. We have Brook saying the same thing just when they got reunited all the way back in Shabodi after the 2-year time skip, when he's performing as Soul King at the concert. We had Chopper telling Moker and Punk Hazard that Luffy is going to be the man, is going to be the Pirate King, and is going to beat Caesar. We had Sanji in Hokage, I think in Zou, yeah. Sanji tells Capone Gang Beijing the same thing when Capone brings him to his castle room. He says the same thing. He says he's not gonna marry Pudding because of that, because Luffy's gonna be the man, is gonna be the Pirate King. Um, Usopp, Usopp said the same thing when he was fighting Mr. Four in Alabaster, right? And then now we got Frankie. Frankie says this thing at Onigashima. So Robin is the only Straw Hat so far who hasn't said that. And I think that's really important, and I think it's deliberate on Oda's end. And I think he's been saving this. I think Oda has genuinely been saving this moment, and he's gonna bring it again. And I think we're gonna have something similar to the I Want to Live moment with Robin, right? So her being the exception, I think I think it points out to something there. Now, I want to talk about the impact of the dream. The dream, and we know one of the major themes in One Piece is inherited will, right? People's dreams. That was said back with Blackbeard all the way back in Gyre. And Hiluluk in Drama Island says, you know, only when you're forgotten do you die, but if you're not forgotten, you still continue to live on. Your soul continues to live on. Now, Luffy in Whole Cake Island says something. When he fights Sanji, he tells Sanji, Sanji, I cannot become the Pirate King without your help. And this extends to all the other Straw Hats by proxy as well. Luffy cannot become the Pirate King. So now, of course, saying all this, I want to point out something really crucial about Robin, right? So Robin, like I said before, she wants to find the real poneglyph. She also is here on Onigashima. There are two people who actually know something about the ancient weapons. And as of chapter 985, Kaido actually announces that her and Big Mom, him and Big Mom, are actually going to be going after the ancient weapons to bring terror to the world and violence. Now, there are two people there who actually know something about an ancient weapon. Three, actually. Now, Robin, Robin was able to read the poneglyph in Alabaster, and she knows the location of where Pluton is, right? And then we have Caribou. Caribou also knows about she knows about Poseidon because he was listening on, he was eavesdropping the conversation in Fishman Island that Neptune was having once again with Robin. And then Frankie also knows about Pluton and actually has the blueprints. And if you guys are making a note here, we're kind of seeing a parallel here, connections, right? It goes all the way back to Order 7 and Ennia's lobby, and that whole story revolved around Robin, right? So Robin knows about Pluton. Now, somehow I'm not so sure how Oda is going to do it, but I think it's something that's going to go out there, and I think Kaido and Big Mom are going to find out about this. I'm not so sure about like where Pluton actually is. Some people have speculated that it could be in the underground tunnel in Alubarna, but who's to say? The important thing here, the takeaway point here is Robin knows about ancient weapons, and Oda has already shown to Kaido that they have an interest. They want to get this done. They want to get this. And if you go back to what with Nakamamushi, said in Zou, I think we see this coming back full circle because now is the right time. Now, I want to talk about Kaido. Kaido, Kaido, to be honest, we know he's been a Yonko, but it was never really candidly told to us that he also had ambition of becoming the Pirate King. I mean, we could assume, obviously, because, he's a Yonko and he had one of the road poneglyphs, but we didn't have until chapter 983 where Oti actually is the one who confirms to us, at least in the canon story, that Kaido also has ambitions of becoming the Pirate King. Like Big Mom, we were shown the same ambition by Big Mom and Whole Cake Island. And this moment, I think, was a really great segue to actually tell us that yes, Kaido also has ambitions of becoming the Pirate King. And this is gonna set up for a very, very good Luffy versus Kaido fight here because Kaido is standing literally in the way of Luffy becoming the Pirate King. Now, when Ulti met Luffy does this typical thing he says every single time that he meets someone new. I'm the man who's going to be the king of the pirates. And then Ulti tells Luffy that's nonsense, and he goes on to deride him and say that Kaido is actually the man who's going to become the Pirate King. And in the next panels, we see Zoro. When Zoro was fighting the Gifters, all the Gifters embody the same thing that Ulti was saying, and what we talked initially about Kaido breaking people's wills, right? So the Gifters tell Zoro that he should abandon any dreams, or they also had dreams of becoming the Pirate King, and they should abandon it. They should abandon, or he should abandon it. Obviously, talking to Zoro and Luffy at large, and they also talk about they should take the easy path to become the Pirate King. Now, all this goes all the way back to what Oda had said in Jump Faster, right? That they need to learn a lesson of what there needs to be sacrifice for what they're going to be fighting for. And because we know Zoro is fighting for Luffy becoming a Pirate King, that means we've been continually being set up for Kaido versus Luffy fighting for the crown of becoming the Pirate King, right? So there are very interesting things to compare between Kaido and Luffy. We know Kaido only cares about strength. Kaido does not really care about his subordinates. When Jack got defeated, like Kaido didn't seem to even care about that happened. Kaido only cares about strength. If you're not going to be strong, Kaido doesn't want anything to do with you. And if something bad happens to you, he's probably not going to care. If you contrast that to Luffy, right? Luffy is exact opposite of Kaido, right? Luffy actually gains a lot of his strength, and we have to go back to Marineford when Mihawk said the most dangerous ability that like Luffy has is his, he has this innate thing where he's able to draw in people to his side. And so we are set up now for Kaido versus Luffy. A person who embodies strength and is a one-on army and cares only about strength versus Luffy, the man is going to become the Pirate King with the help of others, and that's his strongest point. And I think it's a really great parallel in showing us. Now, if a crew member were to die, what would happen, right? So when we're gonna talk about Luffy and Kaido, after Luffy fought Kaido and he was easily defeated, Luffy's will was not broken. Luffy still remained strong in his resolve. He still wants to take Kaido. If anything, during this raid on Higashima, Luffy categorically comes out and says, Kaido, I didn't just come to beat you. I didn't just come to beat you, Big Mom. I came to beat Kaido, you, all your subordinates. It's gonna be an all-out war, right? So Luffy remains undeterred. Luffy still wants to fight. That's the thing we know about Luffy. Luffy's resolve is indomitable. Luffy cannot be taken down, you know? It doesn't matter how many times you put him down, right? And then you gotta remember this. This plays so well with his fight with Katakuri because Luffy was not going down. Luffy refused to go down. That's basically how Luffy won the mental fight between him and Katakuri because he had a reason to fight. He had his crew to protect. He knew he had to get out of here, and he says the thing to Katakuri, and he says, "I'm the man who's going to become the Pirate King," right? So Kaido has not been able to break Luffy's will so far. And another curious thing and a very interesting thing is when Kaido actually listens to Luffy, declaring all out war on him after he's being attacked by the scabbards and before he transforms into a dragon. I think that's in 987. He tells Luffy something very interesting. Aside from the pirate alliances ending betrayal when they feel pirates are about to lose, he says this. He says, he's already beaten Luffy's overconfidence once. Now, for everyone who has had this feeling and Onigashima and this raid, that things have been going extremely super easy for the Straw Hats. They haven't really had any challenge. They really haven't been emotionally involved into the whole story, as we know, for example, in Whole Cake Island, right? And I want to talk about how people have been thinking about there's going to be a failure, right? And I think maybe I can credit Mr. Morge in this video. But essentially, we expect something really, really bad. And when every single person knows this is kind of like what Oda has been buttering us for and preparing us for, where, everything right now is still kind of jolly, but we know at some point, there's going to be a really huge turn, there's going to be a huge subversion of what we think. And when we're talking about this, I think Kaido will find a way of actually breaking Luffy's will. And that's why we're talking about the impact of a Straw Hat dying, potentially being the only thing that could threaten Luffy's will, that could shatter his dream of becoming the Pirate King. And because we know Luffy cares about his subordinates so much that the threat of either one of them dying or something bad happening to them, then that completely challenges his dream of becoming the Pirate King, right? As we talked about this before. So, the only way, or one of the ways that Kaido can succeed in breaking down Luffy's will, if Kaido does something bad to one of Luffy's crew members, right? So I think that's very important, and I think we're gonna see that play out in some shape, way, or form, right? So something else that everybody's been thinking: Robin can't die, and we're gonna try and address some of this counter arguments to why Robin can't die, and I actually think some of them are true. And again, this theory is very wild, but I just want to talk about it because I think it's just really, really cool and really, really important, right? So we all are under the impression that Robin can't die, but I want to remind you guys that Robin does not have a role on the crew, and that's very important, right? So Robin is just a historian, an archaeologist. And I also want to remind you guys that Robin is the only Straw Hat member that Luffy has not directly invited and said, join my crew, right? She's the only one. So after the events of Alabaster, she comes aboard Luffy's ship, asks if she's gonna stay, and Luffy just, Luffy's okay with it. Now, I think that's important. It's not really a strong point, but I think it can highlight a little my point of what I'm trying to say here about this whole theory. Robin is not the only person. She's the only Straw Hat that has not been invited. And remember how I talked about earlier about part of Robin's dream has already been fulfilled, just like Ace. Ace was able to find a family in Whitebeard, and he felt validated. His existence got validated through him actually wanting to make Whitebeard become the Pirate King. Him seeing Whitebeard as a father figure. And we saw the same thing again. I want to reiterate this with Jago de Sol telling Robin that, you know, she doesn't need to feel like her existence is crap, and then the sea is big, and she's gonna find a couple of people out there who are gonna love her as a family, right? So when you talk about Robin's dream, at least in that aspect, I feel like that has already been achieved. So we're gonna talk about Robin's other dream, and that's finding about the real poneglyph, and 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 um and reading the history of the entire world. Now, I want to talk about Luffy and his ability, and a lot of people have talked about this, and that's Luffy's ability with the voice of all things. And we know this due to Odin's flashback that Roger was able to also find some poneglyphs because of that ability. And we haven't seen that ability being shown to us, but just by the mere fact that Luffy has it, it kind of compromises Robin's presence when it comes to fighting about this whole thing. I mean, Luffy still is very, very integral with this ability, with the voice of all things, and finding about the One Piece, and finding something related to the One Piece. Now, now I'm gonna tie in with something controversial here, and that is Yamato. Now, talked about the presence, the importance of roles. Luffy is the captain. Luffy has to get a laugh tail. Period. Even if Luffy dies after, Luffy has to get a laugh tail. He has a particular role. He's the captain. Zoro also has a role. World's strongest swordsman. That's his goal, and he's the combatant of the crew, together with Luffy, of course. Sanji wants to find the All Blue, and he's the cook. Right, a very important role in a pirate ship. Nami is the navigator, and she draws the maps. Like, without Nami, they're not gonna go anywhere. Chopper is the crew's doctor. If anybody gets sick, Chopper's gonna be there, right? Jinbei is the crew's helmsman. So any trouble on the sea, he has a very crucial role. Usopp is a sniper. Now, Usopp is a sniper, Brook is a musician, and Frankie is a shipwright. All these people have very solid roles in the ship. I don't think a ship really needed an archaeologist or a historian. Not that I'm not saying it's not important, but I think it's not a solid defined role, right? And it's not. It's so the other members' roles, they're sort of irreplaceable. Like, I don't see us having another shipwright. I don't see us having another doctor. I don't see us having another captain. It just doesn't make any sense at all. I don't see us having another navigator. Like, we're too invested. When I think about their roles, and we're talking about roles, yeah, we're invested in those characters and their roles, and I think we're gonna see, the culmination of what their dreams are. But for Robin, it's a little different story because she's a historian, right? It's not something that is kind of needed in a pirate ship. So now I'm now going to talk about Yamato and how Yamato gets in this picture, and I think with how things are continually being set up, Yamato could just be the replacement for Robin. And I think you're thinking, all right, so that's absolutely crazy. That can't happen. And I agree with you. I'm not so confident about this, but we have to talk about this, right? Yamato, she's a very unique, interesting character that has been introduced so far, and everyone is still juggling and trying to think who is Yamato gonna be, right? And remember that chapter when she came out and said she wanted to go with Luffy to the sea. The moment that she said that, like, Yamato becoming a straw hat officially sailed, and there's been so many strong cases for why that could be the case. And I want to add this in with the idea that she could actually be a replacement for Robin because, well, what do we know about Yamato? Let's just begin from there. We have chapter 984 titled My Bible, and that's in reference to uh, Yamato having Odin's journal that she says is the Bible. So that means Odin, and she's the self styled Kazuki Odin. Like, Yamato embodies everything about Odin. Now, what do we know about Odin? We know Odin is actually the last Kozuki member to have been taught about being able to inscribe the ancient text on the poneglyphs. He learned about this when he was 14 years old, when he was working for the quarries in Udon. And we also know that he's the last member. Like, that information was not passed on to Momonosuke. Well, up until Yamato. And that's where Yamato comes in, and she's a very important character because if we assume, we're going to make really bold assumptions that in his journal, Odin was able to note all his journeys. He was able to note everything about Laugh Tale. Not really everything, but some crucial things about Laugh Tale. He probably noted some things about the road poneglyphs. He potentially could have noted how to learn the ancient texts because he knew that he was gonna die and he hadn't passed on the same thing to Momonosuke, and he put it in his journal. So Yamato has a journal, so she potentially could know everything about Lapdale, everything about the road poneglyph. She could even know where the last road poneglyph is. That's a really sort of huge speculation there, right? And another really important thing is, as you guys have seen, like Ace is being brought back into the story. Like, and I really love this because, the first half of Marineford, like Ace was barely there. Like his presence was not felt at all. Though, we saw what his actions led to the big Paramount War, and that was really a huge part of the pre-timeskip experience. And we see Ace is kind of now being brought back into the story, especially here at Wano and at Onigashima. And Yamato says that she actually, she's been trapped at Onigashima since she was 8 years old, and she's shown that she actually wants to go out to sea, just like Odin, right? There's a Odin, Luffy, Roger parallel here that I think is we can't sort of avoid it with Yamato. And I do believe that in the end, like she's gonna join the Straw Hats and she's gonna go and stay and go out and see the world essentially. So up until before Yamato got introduced, was I also under the impression that Robin couldn't die? Like, there was no way Robin could die. Like, she had to be with the crew in the end. But we have to remember, Robin's dream is just finding about the events of the Void Century and the real poneglyphs. Like, as soon as she gets that, her dream is fulfilled. And we know Yamato has Ace's will. And this could be a really good way of like still and earlier talked about like the major themes of One Piece, inherited will being one of them, right? So we've seen Zoro has inherited Odin's blade, Enma. We've seen that with Sabo inheriting Ace's will. Luffy is inheriting Roger's will, and Yamato also has Ace's will. Now, how crazy is that? Like having Yamato in the crew being a sort of representation of not only just Ace, but Robin as well, in some weird ways, because she potentially could also know about the true history. Now, the exact details of how this is going to play out, to be honest, I'm not so sure. I'm just sort of winging it here, but Yamato could also carry Robin's will in the event that something happens to her. Now, remember how earlier I talked about Robin is the only Straw Hat so far that Oda has, saved for the Luffy is going to be the Pirate King moment? I do think we're probably going to see this here. I think we're probably going to see this in the Wano saga or Onigashima. I'm not so sure, but we are going to see this being revisited again. So, This all being said, there's so many moments there's so many things we've already talked about. Like, what if a straw hat were to die, what is the impact of that? And we compare that to Ace and Marineford, and I think that could be the other thing, the closest other thing, to having an impact on Luffy's dream of becoming a Pirate King, right? We talked about Robin and her dream, and O'Hara and the relationship with Jaguar Soul. We talked about Robin, I Want to Live moment in Enya's lobby. We talked about Kaido and the Biz Pirates, known for breaking wills. And there's something else I actually want to add here that I've actually forgotten. And it is, again, remember how I talked about everyone has felt like the crew heading into Onigashima have had things really go easy for them. I want to talk about Kaido and the impact that so far, and I think this is what Oda has been setting up for Luffy. Luffy's contemporaries, right? Luffy, the other supernova, we can see they've all had like a really huge thing. Like they've had consequences and mistakes happen to them, right? Drake has been forced to work undercover for the Marines, and we know his father got killed primarily to Doflamingo, and Doflamingo works for Kaido, or used to work for Kaido, right? Kid, Kid has had his arm severed. He's been betrayed. He's had his partner given defective smile fruits and completely lost himself. Kid has gone through a lot of hell due to the Yonko, due to Kaido, to Shanks. Kid has gone through a lot of hell. Same with Hawkins. Of course, maybe not the same pedigree, but they also got betrayed by a poo, and that's a big deal, right? Um, so Oda probably has been setting this up to be one of the grandest failures for Luffy. And one of the biggest things that Luffy can't do, or like that would actually count as a huge failure, is if he cannot protect his crewmate, right? He couldn't protect his brother at Marineford. How about Onigashima? Luffy cannot protect one of his crew. You see where I'm coming off with this, right? We've also talked about that conversation with Usopp and Nami in Ibisu Town. We've talked about Robin being the character that actually reminds Luffy about pirate alliances and how that has been continually being hammered to us. We talked about Robin at Nekomamushi in Zou, right? We've talked about Robin's knowledge of Pluton and the interest of Kaido in the ancient weapons, and that sort of like aligning with what Nekomamushi said, and now being the time, right? This is the right time where the big names want to know all this stuff about, the poneglyphs, right? This is something else that I also mentioned, which is a huge stretch, but I think it adds something to cadence to the theory, and that's Robin being the last member to disappear in Shabodi, right? Talked about Yamato potentially being the replacement of Robin, and we when we talked about Yamato, I'm not so sure about her role, so that could be a counter argument that could not work in her favor, but I don't know. This is just again spitballing here. We also talked about why other characters don't make like a really strong case, at least as far as impact goes. Like Law could potentially die, yes, but I just don't think he has like. Of course, a lot of people, Law fans would be sad. Me as well. I probably think that would be a sad thing, but I don't see how that relates to Luffy. I don't see how that impacts Luffy the same way we saw back in Shabodi and in Marineford. I just don't think so. We talked about Jinbei and how Jinbei coming back right now and having a really prominent role in the Straw Hats. How that sort of like, at least for me, it's sidelined the idea that Jinbei died, or the whole people think that Big Mom took some portion of his life. I want to talk about Jinbei's importance, also being part of the crew or being in the crew now. The New World and the New World and Wanda in particular has been connecting so far, and I think we're seeing some of this stuff being starting to pay off with the islands that we went through: Fishman Island, Punk Hazard, Zoe, Dressrosa, Whole Cake Island, right? Oh, I also forgot to mention it. Jinbei also has the same moment saying that Luffy's going to become the Pirate King in Whole Cake Island, right? So that cements his position, that I think he will witness Luffy become the Pirate King. Now, Talking of Jinbei, right? Jinbei is a fishman, and you have to talk about the political importance of Jinbei and what that says to the world of One Piece, right? So, the new Pirate King Luffy, of course, has a fishman on his crew. You know, the fishmen have been, they've been sidelined, they've been separated from the rest of the world. They basically live 10,000 meters in an island that cannot even receive natural sunlight. So I cannot stress the importance of the perception that people in the One Piece world look at Luffy and say, Luffy is a person who is tolerant. He doesn't have any form of like racial biases and prejudices, compared to the world government. So that's why I think Jinbei's just being there is so important that I genuinely don't see him dying. Like I don't see that happening, and especially since he's been introduced very recently, the chances of that happening to me, honestly, they just drop down to zero. But of course, I think again this is a way that Oda has been doing it. I think Oda knows we were thinking about Jinbei, right? I think he knows that for sure. The same way he knows we've been thinking about Kinemon. Now, this is where Oda is just gonna pull the gun out on us, and then realize all this time the arrows have actually been on Robin, right? And I don't know if I did a great job in this video, but I've rambled on a lot. Some of the points just get jumbled up all over the place. But for these reasons, I believe that something is gonna happen to Robin, and whatever it is, I think it's gonna be a huge deal. So that being said, you know, tell me what your thoughts are on this video. Tell me what some of the things you disagree with, and let's see whether or not it's a discussion.